Okay, we're gonna do. Okay. Welcome everyone to Build Up California's April network meeting. Today we are going to be discussing the impacts of AB 752, a recent piece of legislation that deemed childcare centers by right when co-located within multifamily housing buildings. We're really excited to have two speakers today with us, one from city government and the other a housing developer, to share their perspectives on how this bill has helped with childcare supply building. After each speaker, there will be some time for Q&A, so get those questions ready for us. You can throw them in the chat or in the Q&A section, and you please use the Q&A feature if you can. I know that sometimes people are driving, but if possible, if you can use the Q&A feature, that would be super helpful. So I'm excited to introduce our two guests that are going to lead us in this important discussion. Our first speaker is Joanne Hwang, the Deputy Director for Planning Services for the City of Anaheim. We've been doing some work, the Low Income Investment Fund in Orange County, to support childcare supply building efforts. And Joanne represents the City of Anaheim, which was the first city that we met with to share some of the findings that we had on a survey and the work that they're doing. And we were so elated by the work that Anaheim is doing. And we're so excited that she's here to share some of the great work that they're already doing. And later, we're going to hear from Chris Ramirez from MAAC Housing. They are based in San Diego. Joanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. As Esmeralda has introduced me, my name is Joanne Hwang. I'm currently serving the City of Anaheim as their Deputy Director of Planning Services. And I am responsible for overseeing the city's planning division. So I will share briefly how City of Anaheim complied with AB 752. So one sentence answer is that the city complied with AB 752 through the city's annual zoning code amendment. For those of you who's not familiar with planning terms, a zoning code is basically a set of regulations or rules that dictates how land or buildings can be used within a city. So it has rules for things like permitted uses, building sizes, heights, and parking and things like that. So the main purpose of a zoning code is to guide orderly development and ensure compatibility between different land uses. So with that said, I think it's important to understand how the city established this annual code update program. So in 2011, the mayor created Anaheim Regulatory Relief Task Force. And the purpose of this group was to review any existing regulatory burden on existing or future businesses in Anaheim and make recommendations that would help foster more freedom for Anaheim's business community. So at the end of the process, this task force released a report with several recommendations under the themes of streamlined development process. So for planning division specific items that my division is involved with, this resulted in several changes to the city's zoning code. And from this effort, the city's code streamlining and improvement program was created. And this program, the intent was to evaluate and amend the zoning code on a continuous basis, and that's very important, in response to market and business trends. Just to note that this program received the Orange County Business Council's Turning Red Tape to Red Carpet Award in 2017. So next slide. So this code streamlining and improvement program, it's basically, simple terms, it's basically an annual review of the zoning code where staff identifies areas that can be further improved. And how this program typically work is that there is a master list that planners continue to add to throughout the year. Whenever they run into issues, whenever they notice potential for improvements because it's outdated or it's not reflecting current market, or whenever they find any errors that needs to be fixed. It's basically a free-flowing list without any limitations where staff can go in and suggest, improvements or changes. And other division and department staff can also suggest changes, like from Code Enforcement Division, who also closely work with the zoning code when it comes to enforcement actions. So when they're inputting the information in this list, staff are encouraged to provide potential changes and solutions in how to fix that particular issue. And in spring or around like early summer, this list gets reviewed by management staff, and staff internally discuss validity and applicability of the issue and suggested changes, and the list basically gets finalized. And once it's finalized, planning staff will start the work of anything required to draft the ordinance for the year's code update. And some changes may be straightforward, but some changes may require substantive research. So all the work that would occur, that will be included, will occur at this time. And since the update to the code covers a variety of topics, this ordinance is considered as an omnibus update, which covers different topics instead of being a one topic focused update. And following all that work in fall and early winter, changes to zoning code requires both Planning Commission and City Council review. So during that time, the required public hearings will occur. And once the council adopts the ordinance, the updated zoning code will go into in effect 30 days later. So this typically happens probably the beginning of the year after. Next slide. So how did this annual code update program play a role in implementing AB 752? So the provisions of AB 752, along with other applicable state law provisions, and as you know, state laws change, annually. So there's need for to update the city zoning code to comply with a variety of state laws. So AB 752 was folded into last year's annual code update, so for the year 2025. So the table that's shown on the slide is an example of how the city's zoning code was updated to comply with AB 752. It's just one excerpt from one of the permitted land use table from the city's multifamily zoning district chapter. So the yellow highlights on the screen basically shows the update made to implement the AB 752. So previously, daycare centers land use required a conditional use permit in multifamily zones. A conditional use permit is basically a special permit that's required for certain types of land uses that city determined has a unique characteristic where city prefer to review it through the public hearing process to make sure that whatever is proposed, that land use is compatible with surrounding neighborhood. So it does require public hearing at Planning Commission, so it is a very involved process. But with the adopted update through the code update program, and as required by AB 752, the daycare centers are now permitted with the CUP, or in other words, permitted by right. When integrated into multiple family residential buildings. And that's kind of shown under the special provisions section in the table. And similar changes were made to other sections of the zoning code that addresses the permitted land uses related to multifamily residential and daycare center uses. So one of the benefits of having this annual code update program is that it gives us and staff a recurring opportunity to implement state laws on a continuous basis. So as the city continues its effort to improve processes and streamline things through the code update program, it can also be used to update the code to implement any new state law. And it really increases efficiency and consolidates staff effort because a zoning code change is in itself is a process. And it's always good to have a bigger pot to deal with other than having individual one topic related zoning code throughout the year. So to that end, implementation of the AB 752 for Anaheim was in the lack of better words, simple in a sense because we were able to incorporate it into the existing larger process. So that sums up the process that Anaheim went through to comply with AB 752. So hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Joanne. I really appreciated getting to learn about the process that you guys have already built in. I love that it's an annual code update process. And I also love that you guys have a turning red tape to red carpet award. And that's great that you guys have won it. I definitely think you guys are very deserving of that. We now want to open it up to question and answers from our audience. So I want to make sure that I prompt everyone if you want to use the Q&A feature, if you're able, please go ahead and put a question in there. You're also welcome to raise your hand and we can unmute you, but wanted to open it up to question and answers for Joanne on her presentation. Oh, Chris, yes.
Hi, Joanne. Great information. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't catch, did you say when this would be ready for implementation by a developer?
So the code update is actually in effect. So the council approval was the adoption of the ordinance was end of January. So the 30 days has already passed, so it's already part of our zoning code. So if a developer comes in and proposes a daycare center as part of existing multifamily or even new construction, then the daycare center portion of it will be permitted by right.
I just say as a developer, it's great to hear that City of Anaheim really jumped on this and went with a really fast implementation. So kudos to you and the team. That red carpet award seems very well deserved.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Chris. And it looks like we have a couple more in the question and answer feature. So the next question for you is, when did you start doing the annual reviews and how did you update your zoning code previously? I think that I saw that in one of the slides that you had, but I'll let you go ahead and answer it live.
Sure. So the annual review, the program itself started in 2012. So since then, we'll be doing annually. Previous to that, to be honest with you, I'm not sure how NM handled code update, but from my experiences in other jurisdictions, without annual program like this, it's usually just one topic or issue based as necessary. So it probably wasn't regular for it.
Thank you. The next question is, what process does your city use to notify departments if new state laws are passed that impact their work?
Just by internal communications, typically we do have staff that we look out for any updates towards probably end of the year or any state laws. And we work with the city attorney's office to identify the ones that has impact or that needs attention. As we determine necessary, we also have internal department interdepartment group that gets together regularly as part of the development review process. That's actually every 2 weeks. And if anything comes up, the information is shared then. And also between managers of divisions and departments, we let other departments know of any state law that need to be aware of. Anaheim is unique in a sense that we do have a full in-house city attorney's office. So they also do a good job at notifying each department as necessary when there's new state laws.
That's amazing. It sounds like there's a lot of really good open communication and everyone's constantly sharing. So I'm sure that helps with the process. I see in the chat a question for a child care provider. What do you consider the most burdensome part of the CUP process?
Um, Chris can probably touch on that during his presentation, but from what I hear on local jurisdiction side, cost is one, and depending on the city, the cost can vary dramatically. It can be deposit based, it can be fixed. Fixed is a little bit better because that's a finite number that you pay once and you don't have to pay extra, but deposit based, you don't know how much it's going to cost. It all depends on, how long the process is or how involved that process is. So cost is definitely one. And the second part is for any discretionary applications like CUP. So discretionary basically is that city has authority to review the application based on the established criteria, can be denied or approved. It from other, and it all depends on if they're building new structure versus if that daycare center is going into existing structure with change of use. So it's just navigating through that expertise where I see if it's like a mom and pop daycare with who wants to have like 2 classes max, maybe like 24 kids, like without basic knowledge of zoning codes, building codes, fire codes, traffic, requirements, it can be very, very daunting. So, at least we as professionals and planners, we really try to kind of guide the applicant through that process, but sometimes our hands might be a little tied because at the end of the day, the information has to come from the applicant. And sometimes if technical information is required, it may require the applicant to go seek out like a consultant or outlay third-party help who's knowledgeable in that, which also adds to the cost. So, and CUP process could be lengthy if the application is not and if it's not in a good place. So if there's a lot of back and forth, then the time it requires to process that application can be a little long, which has impact on the lease agreements and things like that. So those are the things that is typically involved with CUP, not just with daycare, with any type of CUPs relating to land use that involves especially with like mom and pop type of operations.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that this next question kind of touches a little bit on some of the information that you just shared. And we'll make this the last question and then we'll move on to the next part of our presentation because we do have some more Q&A after Chris's presentation. So the next and last question for this part is, do you have planning staff who have specific knowledge about childcare facilities and provide technical assistance for childcare providers and developers when needed?
I wouldn't say that we have planning staff that has specific knowledge. All the planners are knowledgeable enough to guide through our city zoning code and the land use regulations and what will be required. And depending on the project, we assign staff with appropriate level to make sure that they can handle technical requirements or technical knowledge that is required to process such applications. So it's on case by case basis, but we do not have a staff that's assigned specifically to address daycare centers. It's more it's broadly reviewed and broadly assigned.
Great. Thank you so much, Joanne, for that presentation and for answering our questions. I feel like we've learned so much about all of the processes that you guys have in place and why Anaheim is so successful in this work. So we really appreciate you sharing that. And what we're going to do now is next we're going to hear from Chris Ramirez, who is the Director of Real Estate Development at MAAC. Or the Metropolitan Area Advisory Committee on Anti-Poverty of San Diego County. What a mouthful. Chris was pivotal in pushing AB 752 across the finish line. He offered testimony on this bill during a hearing in Sacramento before legislators, so we're super grateful to him. I'm going to let him continue to introduce himself. Thank you, Chris.
All right, gonna take just a second to get this teed up. And all right, can everyone see what's going on there?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Let's hold on. All right. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christopher Ramirez. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development at MAAC. What that means is I oversee the development activity for the organization, the development of all of our affordable housing that MAAC offers to the community. A little bit about MAAC. It was founded in 1965 by a group of community leaders who wanted to provide better opportunities to families in the South San Diego County area. We have since grown to serve nearly 100,000 people annually, so that's individuals and families, with a regional impact exceeding $200 million. MAAC's mission is to maximize self-sufficiency with families through high-quality programs and advocacy in our communities. This is just a cross-section of who we serve. Don't worry about writing it all down. Just know that we serve quite a broad, we serve the entire community, is really what it means. And this is the area in which we focus our reach, primarily San Diego County. We do also have 2 affordable housing communities in Imperial County within the city of Imperial. The way MAAC approaches its mission is what we call pathways of service, and it's broken into 5 pathways to help folks achieve their self-sufficiency, and it's through housing, economic development, education, got ahead of me there, health and well-being, and advocacy and leadership development. As the Director of Real Estate Development, my pathway that I focus on primarily is housing, although with efforts like AB 752, I also do get involved with advocacy when and where I can be of use. So just a little bit about our portfolio. Currently, in our portfolio, we have nearly 1,200 units across San Diego and Imperial County. And in our pipeline, within those communities, we have Head Start daycare in 4 of them. Our pipeline right now has 916 units. That's over 5 projects. And we have Head Start daycare planned for 4 of the 5. And that's going to be designed to serve between 350 to 420 families. And something important to note about our Head Start facilities is it's not just for the child that's enrolled in the daycare, but we also offer services to their entire family. So what AB 752 does for us in practical terms is it improves the chances of meeting those targets to help serve those families. All right. So some of the realities behind AB 752. As Joanna mentioned, primarily risk, right? So CUPs introduce unpriceable risk, not just delay. So Joanna mentioned, asked her a pointed question, and her response was, it depends, right? And so as developers, we try to mitigate risk. And so not knowing time and not knowing cost, those present 2 very discomforting risks for any development. And so what this speaks to is whether or not a developer is going to make and put the effort into what it takes to include childcare in their affordable housing development or any multifamily development. But in my case, MAAC focuses on affordable housing. So something important about how AB 752 came to be is based more on practitioner experience as opposed to just a large slew of data points. And that's what largely drove the policy change. So it's really came down to research and legislative findings that consistently reflected the developer and operator experience. So the CUP process really, in effect, was discouraging to developers and operators. Uh, so if it's a risk, it's likely not going to get done. Key to AB 752 and why I'm a big fan is that it removes the risk instead of trying to manage it. So to teams of planners, rather than trying to tell a planner how to streamline a process or to improve it, we just say, hey, let's just not do it. Let's skip that. So the goal was not a better CUP process, and that's the part that I'm a fan of. So what it means in practice. So the entitlement risk drops materially. And so for the folks that aren't in development day to day, the entitlement process, I think Joanne went into a little bit, but it's what you need. You need your entitlements in order to get to a place where you can really start to implement what your project is, right? If you want to put housing in a place and the area is not zoned for that, then you have to go get entitlements that allow for that particular use. And so the CUP was part of a set of entitlements that you would need in order to develop childcare within affordable housing or any other housing. So now instead of having to go for a conditional use permit, once we decide that we're going to put childcare in our project, and Joanne, correct me if I'm wrong, but now we just go straight for building permits. Yep. All right. So childcare is no longer just desirable. Back in 2022, MAAC committed to having childcare as a priority in our housing developments. So that means that anytime we consider a site, we automatically assume and design for the inclusion of childcare in that facility. And then we continue on our underwriting to determine if it's a fit. Now with AB 752, it is much more likely to remain a fit. And so what that means in practice is, one, it's more likely to achieve what our goals and our priorities are. And two, we can start to get earlier commitment from our operators. And so MAAC does operate Head Start facilities in the northern part of the county in San Diego. But now other developers who maybe were discouraged from including childcare in their multifamily developments, this would allow them to commit earlier in the process to including it. So some of the key shifts from the developer lens is that Joanne highlighted some of this. Standards are shifting from subjective to objective. She used the word discretionary. Discretionary, by and large, means subjective. Don't beat me up on definitions, but from the developer lens, that's how we see it. And the focus is on design and building code, not the use approval. So the use approval being the conditional use permit. And so, the local review doesn't disappear, but it becomes, as I mentioned, objective and more about plan check and licensing. That's something that we didn't really get into, but licensing, childcare is highly regulated. So we already have so many different regulations and laws and codes that we have to adhere to. This helps us take one of those off the list. And so what that does in a practical perspective, earlier I had mentioned risk, right? So one of them being to time and the other being to cost. So this makes a project more that includes childcare more predictable and schedulable. That said, I'd like to open it up to any questions that anyone has.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was great hearing about all of the wonderful work that you are doing in San Diego. I really love the pathways of service that you guys have implemented there at MAAC, and we do have some questions already queued up in the Q&A features. So I will answer the last one really quickly from Stuart. It says, "Is AB 752 only can you only attribute multifamily housing development? For example, does it apply to church or community centers looking to build out a center?" So to answer that, the original language of the bill did include church or community centers, but then we did have to amend it. So currently, the way the bill is multifamily housing only. So that's the answer to that one. But first question for you, Chris, is what developers share a similar mission to MAAC in Northern California?
Uh, MAAC I'll say this, MAAC is a fairly unique organization. I've worked for 3 different nonprofits, and I've never quite seen one with quite the broad stroke that MAAC encompasses. Um, I will say that my past employer, Visionary Home Builders in Stockton, they do work very hard to implement childcare services within their housing developments. Uh, they do social services or contract with social service providers. They're primarily affordable. Their prime is affordable housing development, but they also encompass another different areas. Um, I know there is a long list of folks that do similar things or parts of what you saw as the list of our pathways. But yeah, I don't have a great list.
Thank you. Visionary Home Builders, who you referenced, I think you said Stockton. Are
Yep.
they only working within Stockton, or do they serve, other places in Northern California?
They do cover quite a bit of an area. So I know at least up to Sacramento. I don't know how far down they go now. I know they go to the east end of the foothills and the west. They go maybe Tracy and possibly farther.
Got it. Thank you. And the next question I see is, do you only partner with Head Start, or do you ever partner with private providers? And that second part of that question is, would you consider it in future projects?
We're open. One of our pathways is education. So if there's an opportunity to branch out from the Head Start model, we're open to it.
Thank you. Okay, couple questions from Barbara. Does AB 752 address design standards or other land use standards in residential neighborhoods for centers in multifamily housing?
That might be a question for Joanne.
From my understanding, it doesn't. It specifically just addresses the land use issue, where that particular land use daycare centers, if it's integrated with the multifamily developments, then it would have to be permitted by right, but it doesn't require cities to adhere to anything other than that. So just to note that cities will have different regulations and standards regarding other zoning aspects of it. If you're building a new structure, then different setback requirements and things like that. But land use wise, that's what the state law mandates the cities allow it by right.
I want to go back to the last question for a second. It was about MAAC partnering with or for Head Start. I forget how the question was phrased, but I wanted to offer this, if this is also what the question was getting at. Um, if if we only offer childcare where MAAC is the provider, if that was the question as well, or if that was the intent, we actually do partner with other organizations currently to operate childcare within our facilities. So at two of our sites, two of our affordable housing communities, we actually do have a non-MAC Head Start operator there, but they do utilize the Head Start program.
Thank you. The next question is, are there common building code challenges for centers in multifamily housing that you have seen?
For me, it hasn't been necessarily about building code. What it seemed to ultimately boil down to was licensing requirements. So licensing, they hold you to it. They're responsible. They're kind of like the last regulatory step, to ensure that the spaces that we design and operate provide a safe environment for all the kiddos. So
And maybe just hearing things on peripheral with working with the building division. Let's say if the multifamily housing development that a daycare center is trying to go into is, let's say, it's pretty old, from 1970s or 80s, and they're converting the existing some of the existing areas to daycare centers. That is change of use, and there may be some building codes and fire codes related to fire sprinklers and just occupancy issues that a significant upgrade may be required. So it's not just limited to daycare centers, but I've seen that being an issue with any type of land use that wants to go in and change the the existing occupancy or type of occupancy to something else. And that really triggers a lot of different building code and fire improvements. So
that's a great highlight. I'm gonna jot that one down.
Okay, thank you. So the last question I'm seeing here in the Q&A is, do you think other developers know about this bill and try to implement it as you are doing?
If they've been in a room with me, they're aware of it. I really was a fan of this. Like I don't generally get excited about legislation. It's usually like, oh, what are they doing now? This one was kind of a breath of fresh air. My personal philosophy is we try to provide opportunities and break down barriers when we talk about accessing housing or any of the services that we try to provide to the community. And so AB 752, as I mentioned, it wasn't to try and make the process better. It just recognized the process was the challenge. So we didn't get a more efficient CUP process. It said, hey, there's enough hoops that any development has to jump through. We have ways to control and ensure safety is observed, and this is one that makes sense.
Thank
So
you.
I do sing from the mountaintops when I'm at a mountaintop.
Thank you for doing that. And we really appreciate you for, first providing testimony in committee and being that expert voice, and then also for championing it further, like now, so that more people know about it. Because, to that question, I think maybe some don't. But I'm glad that the ones that know you do, and we got to start somewhere and keep sharing information so that people learn and can support this work moving forward.
Yeah,
Um,
and the direct answer to that question was no.
right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions in the Q&A or in the chat. One last call. I'll wait 1 minute. I'll give a little bit of time to see if there's any other questions for Chris or Joanne. Oh, there's one here. Do you have best practices recommendations to guide other developers related to locating the center playgrounds?
100%. So MAAC is a uh, childcare operator, and so we had a lot of expertise in-house. And one of the things that we did is as soon as we started working on any kind of floor plans or layouts or schematics, we had the good foresight of involving our childcare team, especially our facilities manager, and we even included our director who was here at the time. And so having design charrettes, having them like opine on where things go, where things shouldn't go, where bathrooms should be located, like how many of those little squatty potties that you need. Uh, these are things that I wouldn't think about. 10 years ago, Chris would have just said, "We'll give you a big rectangle. You guys sort it out when licensing comes." In the last few years, we've gotten more sophisticated and we've asked our childcare team to come in early on so that we know how to pair this in concert with the rest of the development. And so they inform where they think and how where they think the playground should go, the playground, the classroom exits in relation to the playground and the outdoor space. We got so far as designing the storage shed for the little trikes and the track for it, just as a conceptual layout, just so we had the space all carved out, and the cool stations, water, uh, and ensuring we didn't get ourselves in a bind when it came to licensing by underestimating the clear square footage within a classroom. So that we didn't think that we'd be able to achieve a certain head count and then get down the road and find out, oh, we cannot. So the other thing is to understand what is scalable and what works. So if two classrooms, if you can get that to work in your model, great. On our model, we were looking for the kind of break-even point was about 4 to 6 classrooms. So understanding those kinds of things went into what eventually became our best practices.
Awesome. Okay, I see a question. I'm going to offer an answer and then I'll let you answer as well, Chris. So the last question I see here is, do you ever have family childcare homes within multifamily housing? Um, I I have seen this in centers like Little Tokyo Service Center, which is a really great example that's in LA. Thank you, Samantha, for throwing that link in the chat. But they do have family childcare providers as well as center-based care in this location, and they're a great example. But Chris, I don't know if you can also speak to this.
So we have not yet cited family home childcare in our multifamily, in our affordable housing. We have explored it. We did conceptualize it in an RFP that we provided, I think, to San Diego State University when they did one of their large RFPs a couple of years ago. But we have not gotten so far as to implement it. And some of the challenges that we have is the housing side of things has so many restrictions that we have a lot of different regulatory hurdles to navigate. And so we haven't done it yet, and we have not brought new projects into the pipeline to further attempt it. But we do try to solve for the accessibility as the opportunity arises.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and move us on to the last part of our presentation today. So we're gonna go ahead and move forward on the slides. Maybe we can have Samantha share her deck now. I'll give it a minute for that to pull up. But the next part of our presentation is sharing a little bit about the bills that we're currently working on. Since we talked today about the bill that we were able to work on last year, we're looking ahead at some other ways that we can help support the establishment of childcare throughout the state of California. So AB 1914, which is authored by Assemblymember Schiavo, is our Child Care and General Plans bill. And last week it was heard in local government committee and it did pass out. It is with moving on to the next committee, which I believe is appropriations. So it is co-authored by the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. And in that committee hearing, we had both the chair of Assembly Human Services, Alex Lee, as well as committee member Aaron's both sign on as co-authors to the bill. So we're very happy about that. And council member from San Jose, Pamela Campos, came and gave a Me Too in support of the bill. We're really excited about this bill because it recognizes childcare as essential infrastructure within the general plans. So if you're interested in signing on to support the bill, we can put that link in the chat. You can read more about each of the bills there. You can sign on to support. If you're interested, please share far and wide. We would love your support. And the next bill is AB 2006, which is authored by Assembly Member Rodriguez. This is a child care and state buildings bill. It's co-authored by the chair of Assembly Human Services, Alex Lee. And this bill has been coasting on consent so far on March 24th and also recommended and went on consent on April 8th. And it would reduce barriers to ensure that childcare providers could use state buildings to establish childcare by directly contracting with the Department of General Services. So please check out our bills. The link is in the chat. We hope that you can support. And next slide, please. The next thing I wanted to make sure I shared is this Friday, we are going to be joining the Employer Child Care Policy Summit event. It's put on by Build the Future. If you're interested in learning how to prioritize child care for employees, please join us for this great event. It's in person. You get lunch and breakfast. You can either scan the QR code. There's also the link in the chat. I know that code is pretty small, but we hope you can join us at the event this Friday, which is in person. And next month, we will be hosting our main network meeting at the end of the month on May 27th from 1 to 2 p.m. And we're going to be highlighting the San Francisco Family Child Care Home Ownership Program, and the link to register will be placed in the chat. We hope that you can join us for either or of these exciting meetings. And we want to make sure to say thank you to our amazing speakers today. We were so happy to learn from Joanne and Chris. They both have expertise that we're very, very, very happy to be joining them, and we want to wish everyone a great rest of your day. We thank them and we thank you for spending a little bit of your day with us, and we hope you join us again in May. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.